sensitivity is intelligence. With grace and skill, you have abundance. Welcome to the Psychic Hour. Host Kelly Brickle is a psychic medium healer, numerologist, and teacher. Her passions are learning about the soul and energy. Whether it's through spirit, emotion, or vibrational numbers, there's always a pathway of information waiting to help. Now, here is your host of the Psychic Hour, Kelly Brickle.
Hi everybody, welcome to WLTKDB Let's Talk Radio. We are talking about all things psychic and mediumship here on the Psychic Hour. That is what we do. We have wonderful guests and we dive into those questions that are really on your mind. So if you have any, please, towards the end of the show or sometimes in the middle, we take some questions about what the topic is at hand and what the specialty is on hand for our guest. Today's show is going to be with Nancy Myers. She's a wonderful orb medium. She's an author. She is energy sensitive and she works with multiple modalities. And what people mostly do know her for is all her wonderful orb photography and how she's able to get these really detailed images of people who look like spirit humans within the orbs or pets within the orbs. And she does a reading and she connects to spirit from the picture thus far. So really, really interesting topic. We have a lot of orbs, I'm sure, that we've seen within our life, whether in pictures or that special moment sometimes when you're graced to see an orb floating around the room. There are stories like that, that's for sure. So anyone who hasn't had an experience like that, it's really a fantastic sight. And it takes us into kind of the theme of the day before we talk to our guest. It's wonderment. The word wonderment, I want you to open up to that vibration because that's where a lot of the spiritual development really meets us at, wonderment. Are we really able to suspend our disbelief? Are we able to let go of our prior conceptions? I say that because there's people who want to see auras. There's people who want to see orbs, right? There's people who want to see spirit, like actually with their eyes see spirit, or even with their ears hear spirit. And it's not an imagery, it's not a sensation within one's own body, or let's say your imagination even that you characterize it as. It's actually you're physically seeing it before you. And it's very possible. Sometimes it takes training, sometimes it takes practice. Other times, if you have somebody guiding you or to show you how to see something or where to see something, let's say within a room of that built up energy, you could see it in a heartbeat. But you have to open up your sense of belief and wonderment. Why do I say that? Why is it so important? It's really the bridge for your perception to allow you to see something. There's energy all around us. Stuff we're still learning how to perceive, right? And our consciousness has constructed us to go, okay, that's real and that's not real. And we look here and we function like that. And it's really amazing once you get down into actually seeing things that other people are indeed seeing, but the rest of, let's say, normal society or people who aren't used to seeing energy or hearing energy are like, I don't quite see that. But you have trained people in a room and they go, oh yeah. And they can, you can blindfold yourselves all right down the same color. You could, again, look in a certain location. You all describe the same shape. There's objectivity involved. It's not just, you're believing to see, but it's not a belief. It's actually truth at the same time. And this fantastic, wonderful possibility of this happening is very real as long as you go, okay, you have to consciously say, I'm able to hear, I'm able to see. And you have to practice that belief, and you have to be open to that wonderment. And even if you are having some of those experiences, what next? We're not just able to sense spirit, we're not just able to get in touch with certain energies and get just bits of information. It goes so much more beyond that. And that's only at the limit of your wonderment. That's only the limit of how you wonder, right? We're always learning new things within the universe. But to kind of help conceptualize, I think it is great to talk about orbs and the aura, because that's something that is kind of on the precipice for energy right now. A lot of people have been getting really, really in touch with seeing things, experiencing things. And just like we can see it within our own eyes, there's another way to see, think, and feel. It's a true extension of who we are. So, what else is an extension of who we are? What else about us isn't quite what we've been formulated to know about us being human or us being spirit? So, on one hand, like with the more expansive part of things, I implore you to believe and allow your wonder to guide you, right? You can have objectivity while you're doing it. You can have mental clarity. And how can I put it? You can have skepticism, yes, but in the moment, surrender your skepticism, because you can have it before and you can have it after. But in the moment, suspend your skepticism, because your mind has to be open to the possibility. And I implore people who are skeptic to, when they look into this world, when they look into sensing, seeing, hearing, feeling things different, learning about energy, the best way to do it is with yourself. If you feel like you're going to be, influenced by, I guess, another person, do it by yourself. Yeah, you're going to have to learn how to do it by yourself, right? You're going to have to learn to really surrender your belief system. And so start off skeptic and skeptic. That's okay. But in the moment, go, I believe I can see things. I believe I can hear things. I believe. And that's dependent on what you're trying to focus and discover, right? Yes, I will say the easiest way to experience something is in a group, if you have somebody credible, if you have somebody very experienced, because what does happen? Synergy happens. You share the energy. Not only do you share the energy of seeing, but you share the energy from the person who has the highest vibration of knowing. They transfer that to you. And you're able to be conscious of things that you just weren't conscious of prior. So there is that. Um, okay, I am hearing a touchback. We might take a quick break. No worries. And we're going to dive right back in with our guests, possibly. So, I guess, are we going to touch out for a second? We got a little bit of technical difficulties. No problem. Just give me the sign, you know? Okay, I'm back. All right. What a funny show. It's okay. My favorite saying is that life happens. And it's so, so true. Life happens, and that's okay. So we're working on getting Nancy in, and we'll see if we can get her in for the show. If not, no worries. We will have a discussion about spirit. We'll just have a discussion about psychic energy. And that sometimes is what's needed, Life is sometimes funny, it's awkward, it's beautiful, it's unexpected. And that's what makes life interesting. My gosh, it really does. And so before I was talking about wonderment, right? And sometimes wonderment will shock you, right? You're like, wait, we're here, right? And yeah, sometimes we're in a moment we didn't see coming. Sometimes we're going to be shocked. And you just stay in the energy. You just stay present with a smile, and you ride that energy wave. And it will take you places that is going to provide you so much more than you would have planned. Okay. So I invite whatever comes my way because I meet it with wonderment. So the cool thing is we talked about kind of spirituality, what happens within our wonderment when we're actively developing. Another part of our spirituality that sometimes people don't always see as spiritual is the development of self. People who do this work like undeniably see the connection, but people, I guess, who are more curious about learning about themselves and they're interested in spirituality and energy sometimes might separate the two. How do I mean? I mean, like sometimes people think developing the human psyche is more like wellness or psychology or, you know, therapy, personal development, and it's like more separate than sensing spirit. And I believe it's all like one and the same, or separate from sensing energy. It's all one and the same. And the more you go on the journey, things kind of just like come together. It's very congruent. But in the name of talking about wonderment, I think it's so fantastic to, within meditation, within self-discovery, right? To really sit down with yourself and have an active surrendering of what's going to happen during the meditation. The reason I talk about this is because depending on how you've learned about meditation, a lot of meditation is very focused on like surrendering your thoughts at all, having a blank slate, just kind of having nothingness, right? And having peace in that nothingness. And that's really nice. Don't get me wrong. That's a skill set in itself. If you can get there, you'll have additional benefits, right? What I'm talking about additionally, though, for this today is letting your mind wander and seeing what comes up, and whether it's uncomfortable, whether it's busy, whether it's calm, you go, well, isn't that interesting? What exactly is that all about? And it keeps the mind engaged. And it's a very different type of meditation because you are welcoming learning about how your mind is becoming engaged and stimulated. Is it the meditation needed for everybody? No, because some people just want to quiet their mind. I get it. But I do implore you, if you'd like to try something else, it's so wonderfully insightful. It's so wonderfully helpful. You really get to see what's on the first layer of your mind. It could be the laundry. It could be, picking your kids up from school. It could be making dinner, right? Like actually, it's usually very, very practical things. And people go, I don't want to think about this. I'm trying to meditate and not think about this. But really, it's so important to wonder why that smack dab in your face while you are surrendering, while you're, focusing in on just learning about yourself, okay? And we start to look at all the things that we suppress, or we start to look at all the things that sometimes we're not even aware that are there. Maybe you are thinking about the laundry, but what is that attached to? Or maybe, something comes up in your brain while you're kind of thinking, well, what's here? And it's from 15 years ago. And you're like, why on earth would that be there? And again, hit it with some wonderment, because it will take you down a path that you could have not constructed if you sat down and said, I want to think about this as I meditate. You're going to be given formulas from yourself, formulas from spirit that are far more insightful for what you need in that moment, to give you the insight, clarity, healing, and opening of energy that you do need. So I highly recommend, not from just an energy perspective, but from a personal development perspective, really open up your mind and just see what happens and follow that trail. I promise you, it will lead you somewhere really, really meaningful and really, really needed. Okay, I think we have Nancy on. How cool is that? Let's bring her in. Okay, yes. Hi, we did it. We did it.
I am so can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Okay. I am so sorry about that. I am not the world's most techiest person, and I didn't realize I didn't have the right, framework in place to jump on your show. So, I had a crash course on how to download Google Chrome.
Hey, you're gonna need it someday later, so why not
Yeah.
now, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's
Hey,
funny.
I've been there. I've been there even for Zoom. I'm like, oh my gosh, why is it taking 15 minutes just to get into Zoom? I did this last week and there's like an update or, there's technology just takes us through a loop. It certainly does.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, it's a double-edged sword sometimes, but anyway, I made it. Sorry to
tell
be
me
so
the
late.
story. Did you go hard before you came here?
Wow. Crazy.
No, it's funny because sometimes I'll talk to my guests and they're like, "Oh, I knew something that was gonna happen because I pulled cards before I came and I got the heads up." And
Ah,
I'm just, "Wow, okay, let's talk about it," right?
yeah.
So, I wanna introduce everybody, to you, Nancy. I want people to know your specialty and who you are. So, Nancy Myers is an accomplished orb medium who takes pictures and connects to loved ones on the other side with her extraordinary ability to photograph and document spirit. She's an author of 2 books, Encircled by the Light Fantastic and Entering the Light Fantastic, a Reiki Master, Oracle card reader, and the host of a fantastic podcast, The Spheres of Spirit. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you, and it's great to be finally here.
we all converge, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly.
so welcome and please, like, just out of the gate, let me know how you got into orbs because that's how I learned about you from your orb photography.
Sure, sure. Um, and that's what my first book kinda chronicles. It's, we all it seems that many of us start and I apologize for my voice, I'm just getting over a terrible cold. But, it seems like many of us, were jolted onto our spiritual path through some trauma or something huge happening in our life. And that was the case with me. In 2010, my son crossed. I don't say he died, he crossed unexpectedly 2 days before his 28th birthday. And it was a huge shock. It was out of the blue. And now I had always had an interest in the spiritual side and mediums and contacting and finding out and learning more about what's out there, but I never really did anything with it. And so after my son crossed, I went to my first medium, probably about 6 or 8 months after he passed. And she told me, she said, "Well, of course your son is here." And she said, "Do you know what orbs are?" And I said, "No, I don't know what orbs are." And she said, "Well, that's what your work is, and he's gonna be helping you from that side, and you're gonna be doing it on this side. He's telling me," this is the medium talking, "that you will heal one soul at a time. He will heal the soul on his side, and you will help heal the soul on your side." So that was pretty profound. I certainly was at a loss as to how little round dots appearing in our photos were gonna help heal anybody, but, gol darn it, if my son asked me to do this, then, and this was his purpose, then I was going to do everything I could to then find out about this and explore it. So I got my little digital camera and I just started taking pictures every day, and, pretty soon the orbs would show up. When they first showed, they were just these little gray spots almost, very small, about the size of a tennis ball. And, I got so excited, "Oh my god, I got an orb," And, so I started making a photo album of the orbs. That soon went by the wayside. I now have over 20,000 pictures. But, what happened is, as I built the relationship, as I accepted it, as I trusted it, which is the big thing, then they started evolving also. And so what happened is they started getting bigger. The insides of the orb started changing. The colors became brighter and more varied. Um, and then it kept evolving. And as over a period of a couple years, I'll never forget the first time that I captured a face inside the orb. And I was when it first happened, I tell everybody, you have to have your spirit vision on sometimes to see the images in the orb. One huge thing that and I think my son was setting me up further down the road for our work when he was a little boy. Do you know remember the book called The Magic Eye? And you would look at the picture and it just looked like a design on the page, but if you relaxed your eyes, then a 3D image would jump out at you.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm familiar with things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my son had that book and he was little and of course he looked at it and could get it right away. And I kept telling him, "I can't. I don't see this, Robbie. I don't see this." His name was Robbie. And he goes, "Mom, keep trying." And I go, "Robbie, I can't do it." And he goes, "You have to." And he said that so seriously. And I mean, even saying it now sends goosebumps down my spine. But I looked at him and I said, "Well, why do I have to?" He said, "Mom, you just have to." Well, I stayed with it, of course, and then pretty soon, I could see the images. Well, that, effect, kind of, if you will, or that, skill, I should say, allows me to then look into the orbs and see the faces. But then the orbs that continued to, do you have a am I having an echo or are you okay?
Oh, I'm okay. I'm
Okay,
okay.
I'm
Yeah, it's
hearing
not coming up here
okay.
on the
But then anyway, so they kept evolving and, then pretty soon my sitter, whoever I was taking a picture of, could see their family member or their loved one also in the orb. It started to come in almost like a charcoal drawing or a pencil drawing. So, and what that does, Kelly, is, I'm sure you have gone to several mediums and or we've done readings and the sitter's there and they're listening and but when I first started and the medium would tell me all this stuff and I'd go, "Well, what are you seeing? How do you know they're here? What is it? I want to see this. I want some proof." And, so that's what my photography does. I've worked with several mediums, and as they're doing their platform reading or whatever, I'll be taking pictures of the people, and as they're getting a message, I take a picture of them, and sure enough, there's an orb. And, maybe 80% of the time, the loved one who the medium is talking about appears in the orb. So I think that's pretty fantastic because then the people literally can see, with their eyes too, that their loved one is indeed near them. They haven't lost them. They're still very much a part of their life. And what I have found, here's the one thing that I did. I went to uh, a support group, if you will, for parents they were having a huge convention, and it was for parents, who had lost children, and so I just randomly stopped and, took pictures, and there was this one woman, and there was this well, actually, I'm gonna tell you this story. There was a gentleman there, and there was an orb over his head, and not only can I see now the picture, the face, but I'll get messages, I'll hear that. And so I went up to the man. I do I'm very forward sometimes, but very polite, and I said, I introduced who I was, and I told him what I did, and I said, "I did take a picture, and there's an orb. Would you like to see it? Would you like me to tell you about it?" And he said, "Yes." And so I showed it to him and I said, "I feel like this is a daughter." And then I brought in some messages. And he stood there and tears were running down his cheeks. And he said, I was on on the fence about this, you know, 'cause, 10 years ago, men seemed to be, not as on board as women, right? But they experience loss, they're dads, and so for him to know that his daughter was okay, that she still existed on some level, he thanked me and he said, "You have no idea what you just did." And then I could hear that medium's, words in my head, "You're going to heal one soul at a time." Because here this father then could heal and get past his grief of loss. And that's what I tell people when they hear that my son crossed, they go, "I'm sorry for your loss." And I go, "Well, I didn't lose him, but thank you for the sentiment and the caring and the love. He's right here. He's just different." And when you realize that, and that we're going to be together again someday, it's huge. You know, it's because grief is an emotion of loss. So I understood then what Robbie was saying. And he also told me, my son came in one time and he thanked me for not getting stuck in the grief, although I give him all the credit in the world. But he said, "Mom, what happens sometimes is when you get stuck there," he said, "you become our unintended victim. And so then they have to help heal that and help work through that." And so that was the second half of what the medium said. He is going to help heal souls on that side, and you will help heal souls on this side. So it's pretty heavy, but it's so loving and so amazing. And I don't know, Kelly, I know a lot of orb mediums. I know a lot of orb photographers, but I don't know too many. And that's what spirit does. They give us our own unique twist to everything, right? There aren't too many that do this with the faces. So
Yeah,
it's been quite an incredible gift and honor.
absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people have interests in orb photography. Kind of like, they'll go into a room or a space, or just if they're sensitive to spirit, they're like, let's see what we get, right?
Yeah.
And so certain people are more invested than others in that. And correct, I don't see a lot of people with some of the faces and the the connections to the evidence, that you have and you talk about, with documenting. You frequently share things on social media, so that's how I learned about your gift, honestly. So yeah, I was like, this is fantastic, because whether or not someone has had the experience of randomly taking a picture of something with a face in it, like whether it's not an orb or maybe an orb, there's something to that, and there's like a whole world that can be explored. I really feel like what you're doing is spirit art.
Mm,
In spiritualism, sometimes there's an artist that draws with the medium, right? And
sure.
your medium, instead of the canvas, it's a wow,
Photo.
awesome. Yes,
It's
it's
the
photo.
photo.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
the photo,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, it's, and it's some people have said, it's just another form of physical mediumship, and that's what it is too. So I
Awesome. Yeah.
I will tell you too, some people or a lot of people ask me, "Well, do you have a special camera?" And no. The cheaper, the better. I just have a little, honestly, because the more expensive cameras have so many filters that they literally can filter out the orb. So I tell people just get a little. I do not use my phone because phones have too many filters and I take way too many pictures. But then I always leave the flash, excuse me, leave the flash on, because the orbs don't reflect, but they use that energy from the flash to appear. So there's a whole nother book on that, but trust me on that one. And
Right.
so what I tell people is anybody and everybody can be an orb photographer. What you need is your camera and to stand in gratitude and grace, to just call in the highest good, and then say thank you. So I take pictures, weather permitting, every single day. My backyard is all over social media, but I've built up a relationship with the orbs, and, spirit's interesting. If you show up on a regular basis, then they do, right? And
Absolutely.
yeah. So,
Absolutely.
that's what I tell people. Now, I have talked about, that faces appear, but orbs can be anything. They can be, well, I've seen pets and angels and, guides. A lot of celebrities who have passed have appeared in orbs, but it's not always faces. They'll orbs come in, with messages in many, many ways. Color, location where they appear on the photo, um, the insides, of course, things like that.
Can
So it's very varied, and it's, not limited, and the orbs show me something new. Honest, almost every single day.
that focus and connection you have to the work just absolutely continues to move you forward through what you're seeing. It's beautiful. So you talked about color and location, and you're photographing every day, so you learn about environment a lot. So can you talk to me about what the different colors or the different spatial placements of an orb, what that means?
Absolutely, and, Kelly, I tell everybody, I am not the end all or be all. As I've said, spirit evolves every day. And I've been doing this for 12 years now, and they're always constantly showing me something new. So, I'll have orb photographers sometimes say, "Oh, well, blue is the masters." Or white is the angels, and, they put it in a box and limit it. It's one possibility, but the orbs can be many, 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 many things. So,
Absolutely.
with that being said, some of the colors, like white, there's a brilliant white that I capture, and sometimes I'll get a hit, yes, that is from the higher angelic realms. Blue could be, our guides, but it's also could be resonating with us if we need healing in our throat. I'm saying that because my voice sucks right now. I may have a blue orb here. And what does that mean? That means, they're resonating with my throat chakra to match that energy to heal. So they can also be coming in for an healing. Green can be, of course, the heart or healing. Purple, of course, is a real high vibration. Um, Colors vibrate at different rates. That's what produces the different colors. So if you start with your chakras read through, the crown chakra, as you move up, that color vibrates faster, 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 faster until you get to the indigo and the
Violet.
bright white. Yeah. And so that holds true too in the spirit world. You can be not limited to, but when a purple orb shows up, then I know, okay, I might be dealing, with an ascended master or, something like that. So it's not just a quick answer, but
Right.
it also
I'm
it
glad
just
it's not.
yeah, exactly, exactly, and then, like I said, where it appears, I had, when I do demonstrations, I'll take pictures of everybody in the audience, and spirit has not let me down. Every single person that has come to my event has at least one orb. But, for instance, this lady it was like a whitish, yellowish orb on her elbow, and spirit told me, "Oh, we're sending her energy." So I asked her, I said, do you have something wrong with your elbow?" And she goes, "Yeah, I had surgery on it and I'm recovering." And I said, "Well, spirit is helping you heal. There's the orb." So location is very important. If an orb appears, um, let's say, I took a picture one time of my son's guitar, and there was an orb right on the guitar. It's like, "Hey, mom, thanks for keeping my guitar." You know? So, it's, the other thing is a lot of times I'm called to, be at memorial service or celebrations of life, and they want me to take pictures, and
Wow.
sometimes there'll be a picture of the person who has gone to spirit, their portrait. And a lot of times there'll be a big, huge orb right next to it. It's like, hey, I'm here, but this is what I look like now. You know, so location is really important. Um, Animals can see orbs, and I have one picture especially where my little dog Star, well, she's not so little, she was, playing and running around the backyard, and I couldn't see anything, and it was at night, and I go, "What are you doing, Star?" So I took a picture of her, and there's an orb right in front of her, and she's playing with it like a ball. But what I tell people, Kelly, is more importantly, that orb was playing back.
Yes.
So orbs can be responsive. If I had one lady that didn't believe in orbs, and she said, "Okay, if my friend so and so's here, take a picture of me, and I want him to be right on my shoulder." Click, guess where that orb was? Right on her shoulder, you know? So they use everything that they can to get messages through us, color, placement, when they appear. Um, I had an instance one time, and I just love this story because I was out in the backyard at night, and then next morning I look at the images, and I'm looking at this orb, and I went showed it to my husband. He's my litmus test. If he can see it, then I know everybody can see it. And I go, "Do you see John Lennon in this orb?" And he goes, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And I said, "Why would John Lennon be appearing in an orb in my backyard?" Well, it's when they appear too, Kelly. They use the calendar. What I found out is, and everything's date stamped on my photos and time stamped. John Lennon was killed that day, and the orb
Um,
appeared within a minute of when he was shot.
wow.
So what I did then was sit with it and go, "Okay, what do you want me to say?" And he wanted me to remind everybody to look at and reread the words of his song Imagine. You know, he was very proud of that song. But so they'll use, the calendar, you know, when they appear. So it's, excuse me, it's, multifaceted way that they try to
Absolutely.
communicate with us.
Absolutely. I didn't know that, people, it would make sense that people would say, "Hey, come to these events, these memorials. I want to have some
Mhm.
documentation of my loved ones around." And that's just such a fantastic tool. It's so, connective with what it can give people on the spot, right?
Yeah.
The gate, right? So I do wanna ask too, so you get, like, big, orbs, small orbs,
Mm.
and you talked about the angelic realm. Like, what does an angelic, orb energy look like?
Well, I've actually, and it's on my website and in my book, I've actually gotten one picture of my guardian angel.
Ooh,
And she's, like, looking over the fence, and she's from the neck up, and the glow is just so ethereal. I mean, it's beautiful. You can see her face, she's, like, bowing. When they appear in an orb, it's a difference between white and brilliance. The brilliance you can look at, it doesn't hurt your eyes, but it just seems to be so pure and so beautiful and warm at the same time. That's when I know that, that's the angelic realm. There's a couple pictures on my website. It's called theorbconnection.com, and I will sit and I'll ask my husband, who is now an accomplished orb photographer because I use him all the time. I said, "I'm gonna call in my angel." And I said, "Will you please take a picture of me?" And as I'm doing that and holding my hand over my heart, he takes a picture, and there's a huge white orb right there.
wow.
So, that's how you know that they're responding. It's spirit is not willy-nilly. They'll respond, and they'll come in with a purpose.
Yeah, they'll definitely come, as you ask. Sometimes we just don't see what's, in front of us, and it's amazing that you have this tool to help people further their understanding. So, something I also wanted to ask, because you talked about different color orbs and types. Again, some people talk about, fairy photography, and
Mhm.
fairies for people come in these really brilliantly colored orbs, like
Mhm.
magentas, these bright sky blues, oranges, neon yellows. Do you have any, I guess, experience with fairies?
Mhm. Yeah, and dragons.
Yeah, well, okay, oh, you gotta tell me about that after the fairies. I'm like,
Yeah, in
whoa.
fact in fact, I'll be talking about dragons tomorrow on my show, but the,
Wow.
here's the deal, Kelly, that I would like to just go back for a second. Everybody can do this. It's not just me. I'm not special. I'm not I just am following directions, and I'm doing it with trust and faith. That's the difference. I'm gonna talk and I'll answer your question in a minute, because I feel like I have to. There's a thing that I call false orbs,
Mhm.
and it's very important to know when it's an orb and when it's only created by the technology. And so I will I have people send me their photos and they go, "What do you think? What do you think?" And sometimes they're amazing photos, and I can see the face and I can do a little reading for them. But other times I have to tell them, and this is the number one thing that I see, cell phone cameras, when you point them at any light source, whether it's the setting sun, a lamp, the sunlight coming through a window, it will produce a spot. It'll
Mm,
be a teal, it'll be a bright orange, it'll be a magenta, and it happens every single time. That's called lens flare. That is not an orb. And you can see it sometimes in the back of your camera, your phone camera, even before you take the picture. That's a clue. So when I get an orb, I always look at the picture before, during, and after, because spirit photography, it's only there one time. If you're getting the orb in picture after picture after picture, something's wrong. So it's not what I call spirit driven. Um, if Now there's many and I've named the orbs. I have spotlight orbs, I have crown jewel orbs, I have striation orbs. I mean, they change all the time and I don't change. I use the same camera on the same setting and I'm the same photographer. It's the actual orbs that change. So they're constantly changing, but I also get orbs in motion and I call those ribbon orbs. And I also get fairies. And now I'm a huge believer in the elemental world and the elementals, and if you read my second book, which is a little more woo-woo, you will understand why. I won't go into that now,
no,
but
hey, I'm fascinated by it because like we talked about kind of like wonderment in the beginning, and I'm open to the possibilities. I'm pretty logical and sometimes skeptical with some things, but I'm very, very open-minded. So I'm
yeah,
like, oh, I like when you said dragons, I've never heard of anyone picking up a dragon. And so I'm like, as long as, I see the dots lining up and I feel your story and I can imagine it and I can touch with that energy, then as long as I have these certain things, I go, okay, right?
yeah,
And within the fairy, like the fairy story, I mean, to this day, I've never seen a fairy other than like fairy orbs. I haven't had that moment with a fairy. I'm gonna be honest.
mhm,
And I was talking so much about fairies around this time, and there was this hiking trail. It was a retreat, and the person leading the retreat was like, "There's been so many fairies seen on this trail. Like this is a fairy hotspot." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And I wound up missing going on the hike because something else happened. So I found myself in some other kind of workshop, right? Even though I was like, I wanted to be on that trail because I like evidence and I wanted to experience things. And so people were coming back with their photos, and there was like over 100 people on this walk. And so they had a bunch of different, some people had cameras, some people had cell phone photos. And the pictures that they took, it wasn't just one orb or two orb, it was literally in the trees. There was all these lights,
yeah,
like ornaments were hanging from the trees.
yeah.
They were everywhere and they were consistent on different cameras, and I was like, "Whoa!" It was so fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. When you research where fairies came from, how they were introduced into the ancient culture and the myth, you go, "Oh, maybe there's something to this." There's something, all myths have a basis in truth somewhere, right? So, but I have captured, yes, fairies, in the trees, on the ground. I just got back. I was fortunate to go up to Big Sur and spend a couple days in the redwood forest, which is my absolute favorite place in the world. And so one night I went out with the intent of inviting the fairies, to come out. And I did get a picture. And, in the redwood forest, they seem to be around the trunk of the trees, which makes sense. And so I did get one photo of that. I have a whole section again on my website of all the fairy pictures. And going back to the dragons, I even have photos of my dragon. Yeah.
Wow, you're gonna have to tell me about that. I'm really curious.
But there's so much more to the universe and to the different dimensions and the different beings, and if we keep an open mind, then we discover the magic. If we think that we know everything, or that can't possibly happen, then we shut ourselves off. What I tell people, one of my mantras is a quote by the late Wayne Dyer, who is an amazing teacher. And he said, it says in the Bible, with God, all things are possible. And he added, what does that leave out?
Yeah.
Everything is possible. And so if you walk around that, my son has come through from the other side and said, Mom, you just have the wonderment of a child when dealing with spirit, just wow, you don't judge, you don't pre-limit it, you just have that openness and acceptance, because the more that you accept, the more that comes to you.
Honestly, yeah. You just energy is always excuse me, now I have it. Energy is
Sorry.
always no,
Mm.
it's okay. I need to drink more water. Energy is always moving, it's always progressing. Our consciousness is always evolving. And so in every moment we have a chance to experience something new, see something new, evolve ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I do some channeling too, and my guide has come through many times to tell me what we know, even with everything that we know and how far we've come, especially in the last like 20 years, spiritually. It's only the very, very tip of the iceberg. They tell me that we have no idea what is the wonderments. You talked about that. Saw you talking about the wonderments that await us when we are ready to be shown. So, I mean, for me, that keeps me going. I get up every day and I go, okay, Spirit, what are you going to show me today? And they never let me down.
And there's so much humbleness in it because let's say you see so much or you experience so much, and no matter what happens, you're like, there's so much more. I know nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I try not to put a box or a fence around anything. It's just like the orbs. Can they be our loved ones? Yes. Can they be angels? Yes. Can they be pets? Yes. But that's not all. It's not the end all be all. So I tell people, if you talk to someone and they go, oh, well, orbs are just angels, or orbs are just this, or I go, run the other way. You know, just run. Yeah. But, it's been an amazing ride, and, um, and eh but it's been an honor, because of the healing that has happened, just because of my little gift, and, um, and that makes it so worthwhile. Even if I help a handful of people, I mean, that's what we're here to do. I'm not doing this to be famous, I'm not doing this to be rich, I'm doing this because my son and spirit has asked me to, and if we maintain that in-service attitude, then spirit will help get it to the right people.
The right people that need to heal, the right people that need to learn. And yes, because
Yes.
there's so much, we're like, just us talking right now, when you're talking about the positions, I went, oh, so cool, and the dragons, like, you're opening my mind.
Mm.
And I'm like, orbs, let's talk about it, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, please give me everything. And I'm just like, wow, I didn't even think about that. Something also I would like to talk about regarding, we're really talking about orbs because that's the hot topic at hand. Um, can you talk about your experiences when you've actually experienced an orb outside of a camera?
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I was just gonna go there. Um, you know, people ask me, "Why are orbs appearing now?" And they're appearing now because they can manipulate our electronics. They love our electronics, and so digital photography, there has, the orbs have appeared in film, um, many years ago, but the prevalence and the proliferation of orbs now is incredible, but it's because of our technology. So, um, people ask me that exact question, "Have you seen orbs with your own eyes?" And yes, I have on a handful of occasions. Um, but I probably depend on the camera. But I know people, in fact, I have a dear friend, she had a very interesting near-death experience, and when she came back, her gifts and her mind and her vision, clairvoyance was just profoundly opened. But anyway, we were having lunch one day, and she's sitting across from me, and I tell this story because it's so interesting, and, she keeps waving her hand in front of my face, and I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Nancy, there are so many orbs around you, I can't see your face." So, she could see the orbs, and so I said, "What are they doing?" And she goes, "Oh, well, they fly into your body, into your aura, in your nose, or whatever." And so truly they are messengers, they are healers, they are guides, they are influencers. So, that's one of the purpose of orbs.
It-
But I have seen orbs, but again, maybe half a dozen times.
it's
But there are people who see them all the time. So for me, that's confirmation that, what I'm capturing is not just dust, right?
Well, yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would say, it's almost like someone has to be kind of really open to be looking for orbs because,
Mm,
they're literally all around us. And sometimes people go, "Oh, look at that," and I'm like, "Oh, I wasn't even paying attention over there." Right?
yeah.
They're over our head, by our face,
Yeah.
behind us. It's
Yeah.
just like, it's really funny and beautiful at the same time because, so throughout the interview, your face, the energy on your face sometimes has been like there's movement, but like, let's say everything else around your face is stagnant, so it's not the camera. And so as you're telling the story right before, actually it started doing that again. It's almost like it's like
Yeah.
a it's not a ripple, but you can actually see that your face is kind of getting distorted at times because something's moving. It's
I have
very
no
subtle,
doubt. I
very
have no doubt.
subtle, but I love it. I'm like, yeah, that's what's going on.
But the point of that is we all have it. We all have our guides and angels and loved ones near us, if we just open our eyes and open our spirit vision and experience it. My son came through one time, Kelly, in a meditation to me, and he said, "Mom, the more you believe, the more you believe." And I went, okay." So you're right, if we don't shut down spirit, it's a beautiful thing to learn about, to experience, and to realize how much help we have in our life.
Do you feel as a kid that you had any experiences that you can think back on, even if it was just something very small? Um,
Yeah. Um, I always, like I said, I was always interested in that, but I write about this in my book. When I was little, I thought the fairies lived in my bedroom walls.
that's cool.
Yeah, and I would talk to them, and I knew that they were there. Yeah, I just knew that there were these little beings around me, and, So but my age, you didn't tell people about it, especially your parents. My parents were not enlightened spiritual people. Back then we'd get smacked upside the head and say, "Don't say that, you'll embarrass me," right? So we couldn't talk about it. We had no one to talk about. But, now these kids that are coming in, they're coming in, Kelly, maybe you've noticed this too, with so many more gifts, in connection to spirit, but they're also coming in to the right parents, who nurture that and accept it and allow them then to have those experiences without being judged. So, that's part of what um, helps with the shift here. We're getting more and more old souls, I believe, to incarnate, to assist us at this time because we are now ready. We're asking the questions. We're saying there's got to be more. There's got to be something else going on here, so we're ready.
Absolutely. And fear and, trauma, that suppression can even be trauma when someone says, "No, what are you talking about? Don't say that."
Oh, yeah.
And just the rejection, right? And
Yeah.
when we're not having to heal that trauma to get back to the truth because we're having parents and, friends or support systems, communities where it's like, I believe you, like, open up, tell me about what else you've seen. It's just the progression is so accelerated and
Yes.
so
And
happy that that's happening.
yeah, and it's so freeing. It's so liberating. And yeah, you feel like when I've talked to many mediums that, my age or a little younger, and they felt different. They felt weird. They felt, something's wrong with me instead of appreciating and rejoicing in the gift. And so that's changing. And I'm so grateful that that is.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was like, just from my perspective to share, I didn't have people around me that believed in that. And it was because I was so stubborn that I just was like, I like this and there's something to it, right? It was like sheer stubbornness that I just stayed on the path, even though there was community bubbling and building up. Thankfully, I had those. Thankfully, that it accelerates the progression so much. As soon as you have other people like Nancy, you're accelerating people so much because you're like, ever thought about it, ever doubted? Well, here's something where you can, chew on. And it's a point that encourages you.
Yeah, and that's part of my mission with my son is just to get people to look at things a little differently. Let's explore this. Let's be open to it. And and good for you, Kelly, for because it's staying with it and not giving up because you recognize, wait a minute, there's a truth to this. And it feels right. And when that happens, it's you need to stay with it because that's part of your soul purpose.
Absolutely. What's something within your spiritual development that you're still unfurling about, let's say orbs or another part of, you being energy sensitive that you find yourself staying with that you're not quite sure, but something's, unfurling.
Well, it's my channeling. Um, you know, I I, um, I never thought that I would be able to channel. I now channel my higher guide, my higher self. Her name is Leonini. But I've also channeled many celebrities and things like that. And you do that and it's like, I'm not really doing this, what's going on? But, so many things have happened to me, many, many years ago, maybe 2 years after Robbie passed, I read a lot, I took every workshop I could, I wanted to educate myself, I wanted to learn, and I took this workshop with a woman who was an amazing channel, and, she did a healing session on me, and she said to me, she goes, "Oh, it's so nice to meet a fellow channeler." And I'm looking around the room, I was the only one in there. I go, "I'm not a channel." She goes, "Oh, yes, you are." It took me it took me another 8 years, you know, but that seed was planted, and then things happened, And then all of a sudden, I got these messages. So that was the mediumship part and the channeling part that have developed along with the orb photography. Really, I mean, it's exciting, and I'm absolutely giddy that I can do this, right? With the blessing of spirit. But it was something extra that I wasn't expecting. And so I'm still, we have to own uh, our purpose, and I'm still trying to own that. It's like, "Ah, no, I can't do this." Yet and spirit goes, "Yes, you can." You know? So I'm still coming to terms and coming to grips with that. But, spirit is very gentle with me, and like I said, they've never let me down ever. So if you have that trust, no matter what it is, no matter what you're discovering about yourself, if it feels right, and you feel like, I can do this, then follow it because you're supposed to. Doesn't matter.
Absolutely. You got to take that leap of faith.
Yep.
And it might turn into something you'd never expect, like maybe being a channel.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. You mentioned, at the show, my orb photography turned into a presenter, a demonstration, readings, and then I became a certified angel card reader, and then a Reiki master, but it all fits together too. Each one complements the other. The more we learn, the more we open ourselves up, the more we explore, the more we realize who we are and what we're capable of. And that's an amazing journey.
Absolutely. So, what techniques or what, I guess, consciousness do you bring into, let's say, being a channel and your orb photography, that you've learned from being an oracle card reader and a Reiki master? What did you take away from that and apply?
Well, first and foremost, and my higher self comes through with messages all the time about this, is meditate. It's not sitting in a corner for 20 minutes doing the Om thing, it's just centering at least for 5 minutes and just quiet, because that reestablishes or reaffirms or increases the connection. So meditate, meditate, meditate. The second thing is the trust. Have faith. Um, have when I go to a demonstration, and I have to take pictures of 20 people, and I have to ask spirit, "Oh, please don't let me down," you know, but in realistically, I know that, spirit's gonna be there, and they are, so I trust. I've turned over the controls to spirit. That's very freeing, and then it allows the path to go a lot more smoothly, the journey to go a lot more smoothly. So the other thing is to stand in gratitude. I only do this work because of spirit. It's not because of who I am. So always remember that. And then my prayer all the time is that my work is for the highest good and from the highest good. So that's how I prepare myself. So if you can go in with trust, faith, gratitude, um, then you can't lose. You just can't lose. But you literally have to turn over the keys to somebody. And, I think that's the hardest thing. That's really the hardest thing to do. We're so controlling of our lives, and then things will happen, and sometimes, "Oh, I thought you guys were gonna help me with this," and then something seems to go sideways, and then I'll learn 2 days later that sideways needed to happen so that I could get to where I am today. And I go, "I'm sorry." You know? I doubted you. So it's not having faith even in the good moments. It's having faith in what you perceive are the bad moments. So that will carry you through. That will help you grow and to grow with your team. I hope that answers your question.
It does. We go through these different classes and teachings, and it just evolves our resolve and our understanding.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Our consciousness grows from the different perspectives of the different energies. that we learn about. Absolutely. So yeah, like that's always such an important. I love to hear it from people. Like what has collectively made you who you are.
Well, I give most of the credit to my son. And that's interesting because, um, it's hard for people to understand that my son's passing was a gift, in certain ways, but it was. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest gifts that he gave me, Kelly, was to take away the fear of death. Because he has come through many times to tell me, what the other side is like, and he showed me through dreams and visions. I know that we will be together again one day. If you can take away the fear of death out of your life, because we humans almost obsess over death, right? But if you take that out of the equation, it is so freeing. It is really amazing. And, so I give most of the credit to my son, but of course, to source and to the higher beings and the higher purpose. But, that's what, I tell people when you can step back and get out of the very small circle of, "Well, how does this affect me?" And go into the larger circle where, "How does this affect the greater good?" That's a whole shift in consciousness. That's a whole shift of purpose and focus. And, I don't always succeed, but I try to do that. I set my needs, my wants aside and go, "Okay, spirit, you are much wiser. You are much, more knowledgeable and loving than I. What do I do to help? How do I do this?" And they usually will show us. And it doesn't have to be this huge act. We all know, it's the paying it forward, the small acts of kindness that add up, and that's what will change the world.
Absolutely. And if, wants and desires beyond ourselves are being fulfilled, as well as ourselves, my God, how joyful is that?
Oh, yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, how joyful. So I want to say thank you for sharing your story and your
Yeah, you're very
experience.
welcome. And
And
I'm
Nancy,
sorry I was late.
hey, that doesn't, bother me. Spirit always has you on time.
Yeah, and now I have Google Chrome.
Exactly. The additional gifts, right? So,
Right.
thank you, Nancy, so much for sharing yourself. And I would like to ask, how can people find you, or do you have any classes or services that you are featuring for people to really get to know you through right now?
Oh, well, thank you for asking, Kelly. My website, like I said, is theorbconnection.com. And on there, you can find my books, you can find all my past podcasts, my Facebook page, The Orb Connection. You can go to that. I stay, I keep pretty active on that, posting um, latest pictures, news, and my current podcasts are posted the day of. I have my podcast the second, fourth Thursday of every month. And then my services are listed on my website if you're local, and want a demonstration or a photography or a reading. I can do them also over Zoom. So, and that's interesting. I've taken pictures, especially during the pandemic when we couldn't meet face to face. And somebody said, "Well, can you take a picture over the computer?" And I thought, I don't know. I've never tried. And so I had this couple who had lost their son, and so I had him up on the screen, full screen, and I took a picture, and wouldn't you know it, there was an orb next to the computer screen, and in it, I could see their son. So
Wow.
spirit is amazing, that's what I said, they teach me something new every day. They're limitless, literally limitless. So, anyway, well, that's where you can find me, and, I my G if you wanna write me a email, it's, theorbconnection@gmail.com.
You heard it. It even works through a computer, and on Zoom, you get your wow.
Yep.
So thank you so much, Nancy. Please check her out. She's amazing.
Thank you,
Everyone,
Kelly.
you got it. Until next week, go with love, laughter, luck, and light. See you soon, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, we're dancing first.